This is a production from the Takedown Sports. What's up, y'all? T Brown 31 from the Takedown Sports, along with Jaboc the Great. This is another episode of The Last Word. We got a bunch of topics we're going to hit today. So what's coming up?
Yeah, we'll be discussing Alex Smith's retirement from the NFL, the aftermath of the Aaron Donald situation in the Boom Boom Room, and the NBA's possible injury problem.
All right, sounds good. As always, timestamps for these topics are down in this description. So let's get right into it. So over the weekend, we had a big story with the creation of a football super league. So this came out on Sunday, April 18th in the afternoon. And a bunch of teams decided to come together and form a super league. So these are top teams in the world, such as Liverpool, Manchester City, Manchester United, Chelsea, Arsenal, Real Madrid, Barcelona, just to name a few. These teams came together to form this super league, and it looks like it's essentially just, the rich get richer and screwing over the small teams. And of course, this wasn't very well received.
Yeah, so as soon as this was announced, it was met with a whole lot of criticism from mostly soccer fans, but I would say even just normal sports fans like around the world. They criticizing this as ruining sports. As Terrence said, the rich get richer. So this is just kind of like these bigger teams get to separate away and do all this extra stuff, and it takes away from like the real competitiveness of the game and kind of puts the teams that weren't invited into the Super League in like a worse light in a way. And there's been protests all over the world to combat this decision, and it's been working. We've had multiple teams slowly kind of pull out of the Super League, and finally, the person who initiated it said that he realizes that this is probably not going to work.
Yeah, I mean, I've never seen such backlash for a sports decision in such a short amount of time. And within 2 days, you had the Super League form and the Super League die, just like that. I really don't understand how they could have thought that would be a good idea in the first place. Now, neither of us are very familiar with soccer or football, whichever floats your boat there. But we can realize, like, taking the richest clubs in the world and deciding that you're just going to make a super league with just them, screwing the other teams that don't have as much money, is just not a good idea. The Champions League already exists for a reason. And, that's based off of your performance. So, like, think of it like this, if you're an NBA fan, think of all of the top super teams just deciding to move away from the NBA, make their own league, and it's not based off of performance. It's just, money and who has, the biggest contracts on their team, pretty much. NFL, baseball, whatever. College football, especially, think about that. You can take like all the Power Five schools and basically say, all right, forget all the other Division One schools. We're just going to play. So yeah, like Jacob said, this pretty much got killed within a few days of a lot of protests.
Yeah, I mean, you think about it like the same way, how exciting it is to watch your team compete for this championship that comes once a year and all the effort that goes into that. And now all of a sudden there's like this kind of random midweek tournament where they earn a Super League title. And it takes away the experience as a fan as well, because now there's not as much anticipation. The winning that they do is not worth as much. And so it really ruins the experience for everyone involved. And even like the players that were on the teams going into the super team spoke out against it and said, it takes away from the game, and it's not something that sounds like it'd be a good idea. So I'm glad this decision was quickly shot down. But same with Terrence, I've never seen anything come up and then fall down so quickly. Like this didn't last at all.
Yeah, I mean, the first team that pulled out, it looks like, was Chelsea. They pulled out not even a full 2 days later. Because they had a bunch of protests. It was mainly them. Their fans showed up, showed out, and they were not having it at all. So they pulled out. Then, a few hours later, we had more teams pull out, and eventually it was just dead. So, yeah, I mean, it really it didn't last very long at all. So, yeah, I think that's the right decision here. It seems like the
You
organizers.
had like
Go ahead.
so you had like people like the UEFA president say we didn't know we had snakes working close to us. So,
Yeah, I mean, it just seems like the people that are running this genuinely thought this would be a good idea, and people would warmly accept this. I mean, if something like this happened, like we said earlier, in a sports league in America, it would be poorly received. But imagine, soccer is obviously the biggest sport in the world. So you do something like this for a sport that's the biggest sport in the world, an international sport. You think fans are just going to be like, "Oh, okay, cool." Obviously not. I mean, people die over soccer, so obviously that just wasn't going to work. So I'm glad to see it got shut down. I think the majority of sports fans in general agree with both of us there.
yeah, I mean the shutting of it down has been a big relief to the whole sports world, and then I hopefully we'll move forward with this. And anybody else who has some sort of similar crazy idea will now realize maybe they shouldn't do that.
Yeah, I would agree there. So on Monday, we got some news in the NFL. QB Alex Smith announced his retirement after being in the league since 2005. Not more than a month and a half ago, he was released by the Washington football team after coming back from a horrific injury that nearly took his life in 2018. So Alex Smith had a pretty good career considering the circumstances. He was the number one pick in the 2005 draft. He was a three-time Pro Bowler, led the league in passer rating in 2017, and obviously he won the Comeback Player of the Year award this past season for being able to come back from that injury. So, he had a very solid career. Obviously, he's not going to be Hall of Fame, but we're not here to debate that. We just want to talk about his career as a whole.
Yeah, so of course, he certified himself as a legend in his own way, coming back from an injury that almost cost him his life. And then when they decided it wasn't going to kill him, they thought he'd have to amputate his legs. And a lot of things went down, and he was able to still come back and play like a partial season of football. So definitely legendary in that right. Like Terrence said, he ain't Hall of Fame. He just didn't have that kind of a career, but he still had a really impressive career. Some people want the Comeback Player of the Year award to be named the Alex Smith Comeback Player of the Year award, and I think that's a good idea because honestly, I don't think anyone has quite come back from something as drastic as that. So I think that'd be a good way to commemorate him on his like incredible journey. Of course, he played stints for the Chiefs, 49ers, and football team, and had his best years, I believe, with the Chiefs. Is that right?
Yeah, I would agree there. Definitely his best years were there.
Yeah. So he definitely had a impressive career in his own way.
Yeah, I mean, like you mentioned, he had his best years in Kansas City by far. When he first came in with the Niners, like obviously being the number one pick, a lot expected of you. The Niners hadn't really been good for the past like half decade since they had Joe Montana for those years, then Steve Young, so they had QB excellence for a while. They were looking to turn it around when they drafted Alex Smith. He went through a lot of injuries first few years, missed the entire 2008 season due to injury. His best season in San Fran was his second to last year when he went 13-3. They did lose that NFC Championship game, but that was really good because they did end up going to the Super Bowl next year. Alex was not the starter though, and that's pretty much what got him out of San Francisco. And then he went to Kansas City, and they pretty much turned his career around, made 3 Pro Bowls, like I said, in the Andy Reid system with that high-powered offense. He was playing pretty well with Washington before that injury, and they played at least pretty decently, considering he was 5-1 in his full games started this past year. Now they did make the playoffs. He wasn't the starter, but either way, definitely nothing to be mad about. There are a lot of guys that were drafted in Alex's position that never turned out to be anything in the league.
Yeah.
And like I said, I mean, the dude came back from such a crazy injury. Like he really if he came back and decided, I don't want to play football again, nobody would be mad at him. But he persevered and he came back and he played, one last season. So hats off to him.
Yeah, I mean, he's, last season coming back from that injury, he got to jump right into a perfect situation for himself and for the I almost said the Wizards, but the Washington football team. That division was a battleground for the whole time, regardless of how bad we might have viewed them as. And he was able to jump in and lead his team to take the title spot through the end of that season. Of course, his team got thrown right against Tom Brady immediately, so that kind of wasn't very great. But it was impressive for him to be able to come in, jump in, and just take that division. That was such a competitive area.
Yeah, and like you said earlier about the Comeback Player of the Year award, I definitely think he would be a perfect fit to rename that award. Just like we talk about the Walter Payton Man of the Year award, that made perfect sense there. Walter Payton was a great guy, so having the award named after him made sense. I think it makes sense in this situation to have the award named after Alex Smith because, like you said, there hasn't really been anyone that's come back after what he went through. Anything comparable is just it's just not comparable, really. So yeah, I think naming an award after him would be great.
Most of the time, you get told you might die. You kind of just give up on the sport and try to stay
Yeah.
alive. But he was able to come back and lace him up a few more times. So very impressive.
Yep. So hats off to Alex Smith for a good career. We're on to the next thing. So we're going back to Pittsburgh to see the aftermath of what happened at the Boom Boom Room not too long ago with Aaron Donald. Turns out Aaron Donald didn't do jack.
To better put it, he was actually a hero for the guy that was suing him. Of course, the guy claimed that Aaron Donald busted up his eye and he needed a bunch of stitches, which he did, but he said Aaron Donald was the one that made him need the stitches. The video proves that this guy was getting jumped by a lot of people, and Aaron Donald actually carried him out of the group and kind of saved him from getting a worse whooping. And then he sued Aaron Donald. When the video got released, he then said a statement and was like, "Oops, my bad. Lawsuit redacted." And that's I don't know. It seems kind of funny to me. Weird that he would, if he got jumped by that many people, that he would cling to one man and sue them. But of course, if you recognize Aaron Donald, he probably has more money than the other Boom Boom Room patrons that were beating you. So
Yeah, and it's looking like, based on what we got from Aaron Donald's attorneys, that Spriggs himself was the aggressor originally by swinging a bottle at Aaron Donald, causing other people to jump in, and then Aaron Donald saved his hide. That's just crazy to me. Like, when we talked about this last week, we didn't jump to conclusions, but we also thought, look, a dude gets beat up like that. We were thinking Aaron Donald and this dude probably got in a fight, and the dude was just mad that Aaron Donald, whooped him because he thought he could be an NFL player. That was one option. The other option was that we thought the guy was telling the actual truth. Option C, Aaron Donald literally saved this man from death. So I don't even know what to say about this. I mean, this is foolishness.
This was like outside of all possibilities that I could have imagined. Like, I would not have thought that the actual story that happened was that Aaron Donald pulled this man out of the clutches of like 8 people and then would get sued for it. It's just, I don't know. I'm guessing the guy was drunk or something. But yeah, then for him to be the instigator and then still be saved by Aaron Donald and then still sue Aaron Donald, it's just maximum foolishness for sure.
Yeah, the only explanation for that dude was that uh, he thought Aaron hit him in the melee. That's his explanation there. But then why just sue Aaron Donald? Why not sue like the dudes that were like all over your butt? I don't really get that one. I guess just because Aaron's famous and he's a football player, he's probably got money. I guess he assumed Aaron would just lay down and take it and settle. But obviously, once the police got a hold of that video and everything and they released it, we saw a different side.
Guess he thought, if I can't beat him physically, I'll beat him in the wallet. But it didn't work either.
My point still stands from last week, though. Just in the athletes, just keep your nose clean, bro. Like even when doing the right thing, like we saw Aaron do, try to keep your nose clean. Try to be careful because Aaron didn't even do anything wrong in this situation, and he still got sued. I wouldn't go out to a club at 3:00 in the morning anyway on the weekend and get drunk like that. But yeah, just overall, just try to stay out of stuff, man.
I guess word to any athletes, if you want to pull a man out of a brawl, make sure you sit him down and let him realize that you weren't included in the brawl.
Heck, man, even then you might still get sued because, he just looked at you once and you're in the wrong. Boom.
Yep.
And I would say to anybody, once again, don't look at a football player or somebody that's big and be like, yo, he's just big. I can take him. You cannot.
It's not a good decision. Like, you look at a man that's built like the Hulk, like Aaron Donald. Do not think that he's just big. I can fight. That man can probably fight.
Yeah, because the dude still got messed up, like you said earlier, but it just wasn't by Aaron. So imagine if Aaron had done it himself. He wouldn't have been worried about soon. He would have been worried about something else, But yeah. So at least Aaron's name is cleared in that sense. So
yep, and that closes the Boom Boom Room saga for now.
Hopefully forever. All right. So for our next topic, I'm going to pose a question here. As we've seen over the past, month and a half, especially, but overall throughout the season, we've had a lot of big name injuries in the NBA. So I ask you this: does the NBA have an injury problem?
That's a good question. I think looking at this season, there's definitely an easy answer, and that is yes. We've had, let's see, James Harden, Joel Embiid, LeBron James, Anthony Davis, Kevin Durant, Jamal Murray, Donovan Mitchell, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and then last night, Trae Young, Clint Capella, Chris Boucher have all been people who've been injured this season. Now, Giannis is the only different one as far as he didn't go out in the middle of a game. He aggravated it and then just kind of missed a few weeks afterwards. The rest of them ended up having something happen mid-game that took them out for much more time than he did. But still, you can definitely argue that there's a big injury issue.
Yeah, I would agree there, but I would pose this as well. I think a lot of it's being not overblown. I wouldn't say that because it's a problem, but I think it's being talked about a lot more because it's big name guys, like you just said. When you have LeBron being out, that's the most well-known guy in your league. That's going to be an issue. His number one teammate, AD, then guys that are in the MVP discussion going down, and also other top stars around the league. It is a problem. The NBA obviously wants to put on the best product they possibly can. And you have guys that sit out just in general, just for rest purposes throughout the regular season, which takes away from the product. But then we have these guys go down consistently. Injuries can happen at any time, obviously, but you have this many big name guys go down in such a short frame of time there, it's going to be a problem for the NBA. If these guys all come back for the playoffs and they'll be straight, then I think the NBA will be fine. But the regular season product is definitely taking a hit because of it.
Yeah, I definitely think so too. And I agree that if they were a little bit lesser known, that it wouldn't be as big of a deal to the fans. But although it still be just as much of a problem. But I also agree with you as long as these players are healthy and they get back for the playoffs, I think we'll be going in the right direction, and hopefully everything will be fine by then. But it sucks to see any guy go down with any kind of injury, and definitely, you know, when it could affect the whole effect of like the whole outcome of a team's success. So you never want that to happen. But a player's health is also more important than a team's success. So you definitely don't want people to end up putting too much on the line, and kind of like how LaMarcus Aldridge retired due to not wanting to, die from irregular heartbeat. It's very understandable, things like that. So
Yeah, and that just made me think of KD when he came back in the finals against the Raptors a few years
mhm.
ago. Obviously, if KD had played the last few games, I could have had a very different outcome, of course, because he was balling. But he
Yeah.
came back, re-aggravated that same injury, out for a whole year. So the first year, the Nets, power duo, we didn't even really get to see them.
Yep. And
So,
that's
yeah,
another thing with James Harden is like he was supposed to come back last night, and he re-aggravated his hamstring injury on the
yeah,
last day of rehab, and now he's out for even longer. He'll be out. They expect him to maybe get to play the last game of the regular season, and that's going to be bad on chemistry because that team hasn't gotten to play as a whole team yet.
yeah. I mean, I think when they come together, it's going to be unstoppable, of course. But chemistry matters so much, and that's something that's not really talked about. Just in sports in general, in the media, they don't really talk about player chemistry as far as like on the court.
Yeah.
Personality wise, they talk about that all the time, it seems. But as far as like on the court, on the field, chemistry is incredibly important there.
Yeah, you've got to be able to get the ball fluidly between people, and on defense, you got to know where to be and who's going to be where and things like that. So there's a lot that goes into it, a lot more than people in the media seem to really think. And although, of course, you put these guys on one big team, and it definitely sounds like a recipe for a championship. If they can't play well together because they haven't gotten used to playing well together, there's going to be a team in the playoffs that could probably exploit that in a 7 game series. So
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think going back to the overall injury issue, I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that they're playing in a shortened season as far as schedule wise, right?
mhm.
They just had all those months off with COVID, and then they had to come back do the bubble, try to get through the playoffs. Uh, the Heat and the Lakers obviously went late into October, so that's not normal for the NBA. They came back, not even a whole 2-3 months later. They're not trying to get through this season. So it was kind of expected that we are going to have a lot of issues and injuries. But I don't think anybody really saw this coming. I think
Yeah.
once guys get back, like we said, get back for the playoffs, and then we finally have some semblance of normalcy as far as sports. Probably this fall, and I
Yeah.
think we'll be good.
I think you make a good case when you mention the Heat and the Lakers having played so much longer than other people. Because when you think about the whole argument of the schedule is what's causing these injuries, you can easily say, well, LeBron's been injured, AD's been injured, Butler missed time this season, Goran Dragic missed time this season, and Bam Adebayo missed time this season. So like these two teams that went the longest and then had to immediately come back, they've been kind of struggling. Their records aren't as good this season because they've had their top guys battling with injuries the whole time, and it's probably due to having to play so much in such little space without playing.
Yeah, I mean, I think overall, uh, the NBA would pretty much try to do anything to get money. Uh, I don't think like Adam Silver is like a maniac, but I definitely think they probably should have maybe they could have shortened the season a little bit even more. Um,
Yeah,
considering,
started a little later.
yeah, it had a little bit later. You try to fix the schedule a little bit more. They try to limit the back to backs, obviously, but
Yeah,
it's not going to be perfect, obviously.
yeah, that's like another thing with the back to backs. Like people like Kemba Walker have just recovered from an injury, and he never plays the second game of a back to back this season. So just tough stuff to manage. We've got some other stuff kind of popping off with the NBA though. So I ask you, what do you think of Steph Curry as an MVP candidate?
So I like him as an MVP candidate, but he's definitely not going to win MVP. It's just overall, Joker has been the most consistent, like pretty much all season. He hasn't
Yeah,
gone down, obviously, so he's had more opportunities. But I think he should definitely be winning the MVP if things stay the
Yeah.
same.
Uh,
Yeah,
Joel Embiid was definitely my top guy, but then he got injured, and when he was
yeah.
not injured, Jokic was able to continue putting up the same numbers. So I think Jokic is definitely in the lead right now. And Terrence and I both have discussed this before, of course, not on the show, but there's two categories of MVPs, and in one category you have people that actually win it, which are the, I would say, numbers MVP, right? They put up the big numbers and their team's doing pretty good. On the other hand, you have the true MVP. You have guys like Chris Paul last year with the Thunder, or Julius Randle this year. And Steph Curry kind of falls into both. He went on a crazy streak of games with 30 points played. And obviously, he's kind of leading a team full of, I wouldn't call them bums, but they're not exactly the Nets or even like the Lakers. So you have these kind of guys that don't usually end up winning it. And you could say they deserve it more because they're a true MVP. They are the most valuable player. But that kind of thing just doesn't usually equate to the award.
Yeah, I think what they always should try to strive for when they give out this award is like the combination of both the literal definition of who was more valuable to their team, also people putting up these crazy numbers. Like obviously, last season when we had it, it was either Giannis or LeBron. A lot of people wanted to give it to LeBron because of LeBron just being the MVP pretty much every year as this pure definition of the phrase.
Yeah.
But Giannis definitely deserved the MVP just for what he did.
Yeah,
So
like a combination
that's
of
something.
record and numbers and things like that. So,
Yeah,
and like Giannis isn't the best example of like take him away and what is the team, but last year it kind of was because I mean the Bucks weren't really much other than Giannis, and this year they're a little better with Drew Holiday and stuff like that. But like think of if you take Joel Embiid away, they still have Ben Simmons, Tobias Harris, and so on and so forth. Take Jokic away, they've got Jamal Murray, Aaron Gordon, Michael Porter Jr., that kind of thing. And so what we mean is like Steph has the numbers, and if you take Steph away right now, there's Draymond every now and then. There's Kelly Oubre. James Wiseman's injured, so like that is the combination of everything. But realistically, I do agree that Jokic is well deserving just because of a center putting up the type of numbers he is crazy. Unless Joel gets exactly back to how he was before being injured and makes up for lost time, but that's kind of difficult to do.
yeah, that's the only thing I feel like it would have been. I mean, they're still really close, obviously, but I feel like it would have been even closer had he been able to play. You know, kept
Yeah,
playing before he got the injury. Steph definitely over. I think overall, Steph just deserves his flowers because I feel like for the past 2 years he's kind of become underrated, which I don't understand. But yeah, I mean he deserves credit, but I don't think he should, be the MVP unless he starts dropping like 40 a game every single game, and the Warriors go crazy to finish the season. But I doubt it.
I think the fans, sports fans' opinion of Steph Curry is a great show of like how sports fans sometimes can be kind of wishy washy because 2 years ago, people would have been calling him or overrated or things like that, just because well, he needed KD to get this ring, or he needed Clay to get this ring, or he needed Iggy to get this one. But now he's so underrated because nobody really gives him the credit for what he's being able to do with this beat up Warriors team. When I say beat up, as in they're all injured, not as like they're they're bad.
Yeah, I mean, you got certain people on television that seem to think that Steph isn't a top player of all time that I cannot fathom it. If he's not your top player, like if he's not in the top three or something, that's understandable, of course, obviously.
Yeah,
But like if you don't consider him your top 20, 25, like hold on, bro. Like at
yeah,
least
like
on talent.
yeah, he his talent and then his impact on the game. Like, of course, there are people
Exactly.
that shot threes crazy before Steph, but since Steph, like the way he shoots them, he's inspired so many people to do things exactly how he did it. And like, Terrence and I talked about this. If Ray Allen were to play today, like in the Steph Curry 3-point era, like that would be insane.
Yeah, so I just don't understand any hate. I shouldn't say any hate, but like a lot of the hate that stuff gets. I mean, it just
Yeah.
doesn't make sense to me. With that being said, that does not mean he deserves to get the MVP.
Yeah, You can. I think it's fine to have him in your top three or top five or top three for MVP voting. But I wouldn't say he should get the MVP this year.
We agree there. All right, y'all. So we got some NFL news. Restrictions on jersey numbers will be very relaxed in comparison to how they used to be after NFL owners approve the rule change.
Yeah, so they've expanded the amount of or like changed up the numbers people can wear. They're going to allow running backs, tight ends, fullbacks, and wide receivers to wear numbers 1 through 49, as well as 80 through 89. Defensive backs can now choose from 1 through 49. Linebackers 1 through 59, and then 90 to 99. Offensive linemen 50 to 79. Defensive linemen 50 to 79 and 90 to 99. And then QBs, kickers, and punters will stay at 1 through 19. And so this has been quite a big move and has been received in various ways all across the league, with some people saying, this is great, this is fun, it's going to be cool to see like people like receivers and the single digit numbers and stuff like that. And some people say it's going to be terrible, and certain players have said it's going to cause a lot of quote unquote bad football.
Yeah, so I see both sides of this. One thing I always liked about college football is that we always see got running backs and receivers wearing single digits. On the screen right now, you have Reggie Bush wearing a New Orleans Saints number 5. Obviously, the number 5 was famous at USC where he won the Heisman. But that's something I always liked about college. So it's kind of cool to see in the NFL. On the other side, though, I don't want this to get a little too ridiculous, right? I don't want to see wide receivers out there wearing like 35 or something, And that's just going to look kind of stupid. Like, I think if they had kept it to like the single digits and then obviously the teens as they always had in the 80s, that would be cool. Same with linebackers. I kind of like the single digits, but I also don't want to see a linebacker out there wearing 13 either. Something I want to look a little bit, decent, right? I don't want to look completely stupid out there. But that's just my opinion there.
Yeah, I agree. Like in a way, I don't really care like what number each person's wearing, but at the same time, you've grown up watching this position where these this set of numbers, and you don't really want to see that like completely destroy it, and it could be kind of like a confusing thing to look at sometimes. Like obviously, you shouldn't really look out and be like, "Wait, is that O lineman supposed to be the receiver?" Like that shouldn't happen. But the point is like you get used to seeing certain types of players wear certain numbers, and it gets kind of like an iconic thing in your own mind, and then all of a sudden that's completely different, and it's just a big thing to adjust to. But I don't think it'll be that big of like a problem. People will just have to suck it up and adjust if they don't like it.
Now, something along with that is that if a player decides to change their number and there's an already existing inventory of jerseys, then they got to buy all those jerseys before they get the change. Now, that's just for this year. Next year, if they want to change jerseys, it'll be perfectly fine. I guess because it's coming up so soon this year because it's already April 22nd right now. So it'd be a lot to really change up. So I understand that. Um, but that's kind of interesting because I think a lot of players will probably change their mind. I mean, even though these guys have a lot of money, like you thinking like, all right, I got to pay essentially to change my jersey number. A lot of dudes probably won't do that.
Yeah, like for me, if I know that I can just wait a year and do it for free, I'll just wait the year and do it for free. Like, but the NFL is always gonna grab their money. Of course, last year with the COVID games, if you wanted to exchange jerseys with someone, you'd be fined. And so they always, even though you've just been playing against this dude head to head, one on one, right up in his face, tackling each other. If you want to switch jerseys, it's gonna cost you a little bit of money. And so the NFL always finds a way to somehow put some monetization on their rules. And this is, I mean, and I get it, right? They've got to make the new jersey with the new numbers, but it's the NFL. They've got enough money to print a new jersey with a new number on it and not make the player buy the entire like wardrobe that already is there. So it's a little extreme, kind of dumb. I think some players will just kind of pull a sneaky on them and wait till the next year and switch it for free. But who knows?
Yeah, I feel like a lot of players will do that. I just don't see a bunch of players decide, I'll pay. Now, I think it's not like they're going to be charged like the retail price, I assume. Like you saw every jersey, $100. I don't think they would do that, but I assume it would be like, a payout price or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, but I still think a lot of players will probably change their mind at that point. Um, and even then, I feel like the only players that would really do it would be those running backs, receivers, and corners that, got famous with certain numbers in college. They can't wear it in the NFL. Um, but it'd probably be more younger guys anyway, because a lot of the guys that have played with the same jersey for years, they probably won't want to change in the NFL now. So I don't think it'll matter to them that much
Yeah.
either.
And mentioning that, I think brings up a cool point. Now, as college players kind of get famous off of numbers that they wouldn't have been able to play before, they'll actually get to come straight into the NFL and continue using that number as long as it's available on that team. So that would be a cool thing to see in the future as rookies come in and get to keep their college numbers that brought them attention and everything like that. Not saying the number brought them attention, but you think of a college player, you probably think of their face and then their jersey number, and that helps if they go into the NFL and they keep that number. So
Yeah, that's a pretty good point that I hadn't actually really thought about, because it goes back to the Reggie Bush thing. I mean, when he came in, he, pretty much petitioned the NFL like, yo, I want to wear this number 5. It was famous for me. And he got to wear it in like mini camps, but obviously once they started playing games, he had to switch to 25. But
yeah,
when I think Reggie Bush, I generally still think about that USC number 5 jersey. So for the guys
yeah.
in college to be able to come over with that jersey, that's a good point there.
All right, guys. Now we're going to kick off our quickfire section for this week, and we're going to start with our highlight recap of the WNBA draft. So, most notably, NCAA tournament standout Ari McDonald went 3rd overall to the Atlanta Dream. The Dallas Wings captured 3 top 5 picks, grabbing Charlie Collier, a center from Texas, number 1 overall, and then other notable mentions are Kiana Williams for Stanford, kind of their lead player, and I think the only senior on Stanford, or at least like the main one. She went 18th to the Seattle Storm, and so I don't know how Dallas managed to acquire that many top 5 picks, but I think they should definitely do good next season if they have 3 top 5 draft picks coming to their team within the coming season.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Just so you know, the WNBA season starts in a few weeks. Thursday, May 13th, they will be beginning their 25th season of existence. So next up, we got UFC. So UFC 261 is this weekend. It'll be headlined by Kamaru Usman versus Jorge Masvidal for the welterweight title. This is the second time they fought. Obviously, Kamaru Usman is defending his title against Jorge for the second time after he beat him. This event is notable not for just the star power on the card, but for the fact that this is the first UFC event in over a year that's going to be at a full capacity crowd. So that'll be interesting to see there. Next up, we got Hines Ward. He's a 4-time Pro Bowler and 3-time All-Pro, Super Bowl champion, and Super Bowl MVP for the Pittsburgh Steelers. He took a job at Florida Atlantic University to be on their staff for the football team, obviously. We've seen a lot of these older players from that generation from the 90s and 2000s decide that they want to go back to college, help out these smaller schools. The biggest name is obviously Deion Sanders at Jackson State. He's doing a good job there.
Yep.
Hopefully we get to see more of these guys do that and, help these programs. Obviously, these guys don't have – a lot of them don't have coaching experience. Hines did help out with the Jets for about, a season or two.
I think so.
As an offensive assistant. But most of these guys don't have, a lot of coaching experience, but it'll still be great to see these guys go back to college and help out these smaller schools and build up their brands.
Yep. And then shifting back over to basketball for the NBA, the New York Knicks have been on fire. They are on an 8-game win streak, headed by Julius Randle, having some monster games over and over and over again. The most recent 2, they went to overtime, where it was a very close game up until overtime, and then the Knicks just dominated once it got to OT. So LeBron has tweeted, and a few other people have said the league is better when the Knicks are winning. And I do find it very exciting that the Knicks are on an 8-game win streak. And Julius Randle is one of my favorite players. I like to see him thriving the way he is. And I do think it's definitely a fun time to have the Knicks be an actual threat on the schedule and not just someone where you look at and you're like, oh, look, free win.
You're correct there. So back to the NFL real quick. Jordan Reed, former tight end who played the majority of his career for the Washington football team, did retire just a few days ago, citing health issues from multiple concussions that he had throughout his career. Jordan Reed, at his height, was definitely a pretty good tight end. He just, had so many injuries. But we will not take anything away from him for that because, like we talked about earlier, health over the game every single time. For what it was, he did have a good career. He did make one Pro Bowl back in 2016. So, just solid career, unfortunately cut short by injuries there.
Yep. And then our final part of the quickfire thing for this week, we'd like you to stay tuned for our big episode next week, which will be the draft preview. We will be breaking down pretty much the whole draft and giving our predictions of who will go where and why and how it will affect each team. It'll be a great episode, a fun episode, and it's pretty much a draft special for next week. And so we hope we will catch you there to view that one and really enjoy our insights on the big NFL 2021 draft.
Yep. So, all right, y'all, that's all for this episode. I'd like to thank you for tuning in. Check out the links in the description. Hit the like button if you enjoyed the video and subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. Like you said, that's going to be a very important episode with the draft preview special. This has been T Brown 31 with Jaboc the Great. We will see y'all later.